Welcome to FRCMedia News for Thursday, February 20th, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. On this week's show, Mayor Coogan gives us his views on the FY 2021 school department budget. The legislature's Committee on Higher Education pays a visit to Bristol Community College. Fall River is part of the debate between the two Democratic candidates running for the U.S. Senate in Massachusetts. And we get an update on the partners of One South Coast Chamber and how they're faring thus far since the merger. We'll have those stories coming up, but first, let's delve into the news headlines of the week. We bring in Phil Devitt, the digital news editor at the Herald News. Phil, welcome back.
Thank you, Keith. Good to be with you.
Yeah, let's start with a story that we talked about last week at this time, but actually things developed after we were recording the show. Back to the King Philip Mill, we had discussed last week that there were some state investigators on the site on Kilburn Street doing some digging and looking around, and we really didn't know what was going on. Well, last Thursday, and it was reported in Friday's paper or online, that in fact the Attorney General's office has issued some 10 subpoenas to some city departments, including the mayor's office as well as others, into this case. What do we know? Is there anything else we know new from this case, Phil?
So, well, I mean, last week was certainly an eventful week for the King Philip Mill property. There's no question about it. It was just a couple of days after the AG executed a search warrant on the property that this latest development you're talking about happened. 10 city departments subpoenaed by the AG's office, including the mayor's office. Engineering and environmental businesses also named. Mayor Coogan tells us that he and the city are prepared to cooperate 100%, to use his words. So what is this all about, I guess, is the big question you're asking, Keith. The AG remains tight-lipped about what exactly they're doing, other than to confirm that there is an ongoing investigation. So we keep asking the question, we keep getting that answer back, but we do know some other things that are related here and help us connect the dots. We do know, for example, that the state's environmental crime strike force was on site last week, digging and bagging items. We know that strike force had been investigating the property since at least November, when it halted demolition on the site after asbestos was discovered there. And we know that developer Robert Kafori, who the owner of that site and who has big plans for that site, told us that he had a lot of that asbestos and debris trucked out. He is planning to build some single-family homes and apartments there, create some public access to nearby Cook Pond, but it appears that those plans have run into another stumbling block as we now wade our way through this state investigation. But we're following it, and we hope to get more information, concrete information on it very soon.
You know, one of the things that does come to mind, unfortunately, is that the mayor's office was one of the departments that was subpoenaed in this case. Of course, this would more than likely involve the administration of Jazio Correa, who had lost his reelection bid last November. And you start thinking again, with the troubles that Mayor Correa is facing on a federal level for some of the federal charges, whether there may be some connection at all. I know that's all speculation, but obviously it's what people are talking about, right? As you go across the city and talking to people about this issue, was the mayor's office involved in this as well?
Sure. I think it's a question on a lot of people's minds, and there are even echoes of that in this case. We talked to the Attorney General. They say there's an ongoing investigation. Well, the last time that we heard from the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, who was sort of at the head of these indictments against former Mayor Correa, the investigation into the former mayor is still ongoing. Right. So, there are still questions to be asked. Of course, there's speculation and then there are facts, but it remains to be seen and what the connection might be.
Right.
So,
and again, we'll continue to wait.
We'll keep tabs on it.
And we'll continue to wait for the facts to come out, and then we'll make our judgments and our determinations at that time. Speaking of the former mayor, one of his alleged co-conspirators last week or late last week, early this week, decided to put a property that he owned up for sale. Antonio Costa, who was also set to testify against the mayor in his federal indictments, has placed his South Main Street property, which is located at 251-221 South Main Street at the corner of Spring Street, up for sale. He's looking to ask for $2 million for that property. And something that's interesting in this case, Phil, is that this does tie into the federal indictment in some way, shape, or form, in that it was used by former Mayor Correa, that site, as a campaign headquarters at one time.
That's correct. And this is a pretty substantial space at about 50,000 square feet. If you're trying to picture where exactly on South Main Street it is, it's where South Main meets up with Spring Street. And the owner is Antonio Costa, businessman, who, of course, pleaded guilty late last year in the former mayor's alleged scheme to extort marijuana companies. He is set to testify, as you said, Keith, in the federal government's case against the mayor. A trial is expected to start May 4th. Of course, we've seen time and time again that date get pushed back, so it could change, but it's starting to look like it's going to be May 4th. And Costa, along with two other co-conspirators, has yet to be sentenced by the federal judge. But as you mentioned, yes, former Mayor Correa rented space there for two of his successful mayoral campaigns. And the building does figure into the indictment against the mayor as a meeting place tied to some of the extortion and bribery charges that the mayor is now facing.
Yeah. Reading in the article by Joe Good, getting back to that, how it was used potentially with the indictments. I'll read directly from the article. According to the federal indictment, after Correa was reelected in 2017, he and then Chief of Staff Jan Andrade had met with Mr. Costa at the building at the campaign headquarters. Using money from Correa's campaign coffers, the then mayor and Andrade met Costa with a $3,900 check. Federal prosecutors then allege that Correa then told Costa that he had to give him $3,900 in cash, and that Mr. Costa had complied. So again, interesting to see what happens with the sale of this building. And you know, right now it's just a real estate transaction, and I don't think there's going to be any other incidents involved with the building, but it is a building for sale and something of note because of the former mayor's indictment. All right, moving ahead now to some educational issues this week. Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, this school committee this week hired a brand new principal for the school, and he is Andrew Ribello. What do we know about Mr. Ribello, Phil?
So Andrew Ribello is a brand new principal and assistant superintendent at Diamond, but he is not brand new to Diamond. Right. He was one of two candidates for this position and the only internal candidate. First having worked at Diamond several years ago as a school counselor. He moved on to some other jobs, including one in Boston, but also at Durfee High School, where he was a vice principal for the class of 2018. And then he came back to Diamond, where he's been in the administration as an assistant principal of student affairs since 2018. And now he has this post to look forward to at Diamond. The school committee voted not unanimously for Mr. Ribello. It was 4-1. Jeffrey Begin was the only member of the committee to vote against Ribello's appointment. One of the members of the committee, Donald DiBiasio, was absent, we should note. But we talked to Mr. Ribello after the meeting, which he was obviously elated by the news. And he says he just can't wait to get started in this new role. He's there right now, but this will obviously be a different leadership opportunity for him. And one thing that he told us is that if parents are sending their kids to Diamond, and I'm quoting him, we want them to know we're going to care about their growth as a human being. If we continue to focus on growing the kids to be productive citizens and humans, the rest will fall into place. So this is just a glimpse at the holistic approach that Mr. Ribello will bring to the position. You know, but certainly he knows his way around the building, well, to say the least.
Right, right. So we wish him all the best as he begins his new position at Diamond. Finally this week, big law going into effect officially this Sunday, February 23rd here in Massachusetts. It's the hands-free phone law, if you will, where drivers will not be allowed to use their cell phones in their hands while driving. They'll be able to use it in a hands-free mode. And this is something I hope a lot of people have already been doing, not using their cell phones while they're driving. But now there's a law in effect in Massachusetts, takes effect on Sunday, and there are some penalties that go along with it. Until March 31st, violators of the law will receive some verbal warnings. Then after March 31st, citations will be issued, and up to a third offense, the fine could be upwards of $500. Has the paper talked with anyone in particular in terms of getting ready for this? Are a lot of people aware of this, or are they just going to have to find out the hard way if they get caught?
Well, we're certainly doing our best to get the word out. In fact, on tomorrow's front page, we're devoting some centerpiece space to this specific issue, just to let people know, hey, this weekend things are changing.
Right.
And our sister paper, the Standard Times in New Bedford, tried to get a pulse on people as well. There's no way to tell how ready people are going to be until this law starts to go into effect. You mentioned, Keith, there have been some laws in place for some time against cell phone use in vehicles, but that was particularly tied to texting and email.
Correct.
Now it's even placing phone calls. And I think the law has some complexities, but it boils down to if you're driving and it's in your hands, you're breaking the law. So starting on Sunday, your hands are going to have to be on the wheel, both of them. And hopefully we'll be able to provide people with a good breakdown and distill the do's and don'ts within in the paper this week.
Yeah, I would think some people in Fall River may actually be aware of this in the fact that the state of Rhode Island has actually had this on the books for some time now. So if you're driving into Providence or even into Tiverton, Rhode Island, the state law there in effect is hands-free. So I would think it may not be as an issue with some people than it will be with others. All right, Phil, what's coming up over the next few days?
So we don't want to tempt the weather gods here, but the big question we decided to ask ourselves over the last week is, where is winter? We haven't gotten a ton of snow compared to our memories from past years. Not that we're looking for it, but we're going to explore that simple question coming up in our Sunday paper this week. Yeah,
sounds good. Hey, I'm all for a wet winter and not a white one, so I'm okay with it. And with 1 month away, right? March 20th or so is the first day of spring, so 28 days, 29 days from now, it's coming. All right, Phil, thanks. We'll talk again next week. We'll have more right after this.
On the latest hot jobs list from the MassHire Fall River Career Center. Speech language pathologist. Catholic Memorial Home, located at 2446 Highland Avenue, is looking to hire a full-time speech language pathologist to provide service coordination, primary therapy, and speech and language evaluations for patients. Job number 132-18877. Manufacturing engineer. L3 Harris Technologies, located at 275 Martin Street, is looking for a full-time manufacturing engineer to implement and analyze manufacturing plans, projects, strategies, and systems. Job number 132-16460. General Manager. Barrett's Ale House, located at 4171 North Main Street, is in need of a full-time general manager responsible for overseeing operations, staff, purchasing food, supplies, equipment, and customer service. Job number 132-13600. Family Service Association, located at 101 Rock Street, is looking to fulfill the following full and part-time positions. Research Technician, job number 132-16664. Clinician, job number 132-16665. Accounting Assistant, job number 132-16679. Electronic Health Record Specialist, job number 132-16675. For more information on these or other positions, visit MassHire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the MassHire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Last week, Fall River School Superintendent Matthew Malone shared his fiscal 2021 budget with the school committee. Mayor Paul Coogan says there's much to celebrate in the spending plan, including a boost in funding.
It's like a $13 million increase with this Student Opportunity Act. The money that the state legislator and the governor were gracious enough to give to us. It's really going to make a world of difference in education in Fall River. That's probably the biggest single-year increase we've seen, as far as I can ever remember. And of course, 80-something% of that is all state money. Obviously, we're targeted because of our demographics. We have a high population of students at risk, and ELL, special ed. So we fit into all the metrics they were looking for to give us the maximum amount of money that we can use. Now, with that money goes some requirements for an improvement plan that will be vetted and approved by the DESE. I always tell people, you look at the Fall River Public Schools, and our facilities are beautiful. We have really nice buildings. When we get done with the Durfee High School project, it's going to be a gorgeous school. We have the facilities. Our weakness is in a few areas. Recruitment of teachers in some cases. Scores, that's another area. Attendance. Those are things we have to work on, and I've made it very clear to the superintendent that we're going to be accountable for that. We're going to be accountable for those improvements. The community wants to know that when the state is making an investment like that in us, what are we doing with the money? And I think I have no problem with accountability like that. I know what my focus is. We're looking at the pre-K and the kindergarten and getting these kids into the schools younger to get them the fundamentals necessary to be successful in the Fall River Public Schools. If we can expand those programs, which we are going to do in this budget, I think we can give these kids a head start and a little step up.
Our talk with Mayor Coogan is part of a new monthly program here on FRC TV called Coogans Corner. Look for the debut edition very soon. Members of the legislature's Joint Committee on Higher Education made a stop to Bristol Community College last week. The visit is part of the committee's goal to visit all 29 public higher education institutions. Bristol President Dr. Laura Douglas says it's important for the lawmakers to hear from faculty, staff, and students on the great work being done at Bristol, along with sharing the college's vision for growth.
The point is to share with them our concerns and the issues that we grapple with every day. We certainly grapple with the lack of funding. It has been on the decline for a very long time. It means that when those dollars decline, then we have to shift those costs to our students. And it really is not helpful when our students are looking for college affordability and debt is on the rise. In the last 10 years, we've had an 80% increase in student debt. So we need to get the message out to our legislators about what this really means to us and how important it is to have a priority on higher education. With that said, we also know that 72% of all jobs in Massachusetts are going to require more than a high school diploma. So we're just widening the skills gap. The higher tuition costs come, the greater the debt assumed, and the need for college-educated individuals. It just is a mismatch for a really great future for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Really, what we're trying to help people understand is that for the masses, we have more than 50% of all students in public higher education start at the community college, and so for the masses, keeping community college accessible and affordable and to have the right facilities and the right equipment is so incredibly important on getting them into the pathway of higher education.
We have seen plenty of the Democratic candidates running for president during their debates, but this week was the first opportunity to hear from the Democrats in Massachusetts in the debate there for the U.S. Senate seat. Incumbent Senator Ed Markey is facing a challenge from Congressman Joseph Kennedy, who serves Fall River. During the candidates' discussion on the Green New Deal, Kennedy explained how a city like Fall River can be impacted by passage.
I support the Green New Deal. I think it frames the debate the right way. Carbon neutral emissions, getting us down to net zero emissions, a sector-by-sector decarbonization. The approach that I've taken to it is trying to ensure that communities that have borne the brunt of environmental degradation and climate change are put in the forefront, like communities like Fall River. And specifically, if you look at what I've done in communities like Fall River, it's tackling, we filed a bill last week to make sure that communities that are being targeted for petrochemical plants and chemical contamination, that they've got a greater ability to push back against it. We've been working with the community in Fall River there to transform that economy to be the staging area for offshore wind. We've filed legislation and worked on that with Senator Markey. We've been dedicated to issues like combined sewage overflow and stormwater runoff, the ways in which this impacts local frontline communities and gateway cities.
We'd like to thank WGBH, which hosted the debate, for the use of that clip. We'll have more FRC Media News after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
Today we have Zoe. Zoe here is 9 months old. She is a brown tabby, as you can see. She should be okay with other cats in your home. Of course, there's always going to be a little bit of an adjustment period anytime you bring home a new animal. She can still be very playful, being 9 months old, but she'd be the kind of cat that could potentially hang out with you, while you watch TV after a long day, that kind of stuff. Having a little buddy in your home. She would be okay with children. There'd be a little bit of an adjustment period there too, just because children can be loud and rambunctious, and in a new home, that kind of stuff, she might get a little spooked. So if you'd like to see Zoe, you can come on down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
Today we have Milo. Milo is a 2-year-old Chihuahua mixed with, we think, either a Dachshund or possibly a Corgi. Milo is kind of timid. He would do best in a quiet home with no children. He does, however, get along with other dogs, and he doesn't seem to mind cats. So maybe he wouldn't mind having a friend at home. Milo would probably prefer to just sit at home and relax. What he needs most of all is someone who's willing to just take the time and go slow and let him come out of his shell. And once he does, he's gonna make a really sweet friend for someone. So if you want to meet Milo, come on down to Forever Paws Animal Shelter at 300 Linwood Street and say hi.
It's been a few months since the Bristol County and South Coast Chambers of Commerce merged to become one South Coast Chamber. Co-CEO Michael O'Sullivan says the combined entity has worked well thus far with a focus on membership.
On January 15th, we started a membership drive, and the membership drive has gone incredibly well. Ian Abreu, our manager of membership and business development, has done a great job leading our ambassadors. We have about 35 ambassadors that are helping us sell. We've had great participation from our membership, and we're doing really well. At this point, we've got 65 brand new members, with a goal of trying to get to 75 by Friday, February 28th. So if you're interested, if you want to help grow your business, you care about your community, you want to get involved, give Ian Abreu a call or come see us here in Fall River. We'll be happy to help you become a member of the Chamber and just help your business grow. Joining the Chamber is an important part of any business plan, or it should be. The networking is fantastic. Just last night at Whalers Tavern in New Bedford, we had a networking event called Chamber Cheers. We had about 50 people, and it was great camaraderie, great business building, great networking, putting new members together. A lot of it was new members, putting them together with some of the ambassadors, and just helping people make connections so that they can grow their business.
That'll do it for this edition of FRC Media News. You can watch FRC Media News Thursdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. and online at our website, frmedia.org. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday.